Have you ever wondered who the greatest prophets in the Bible were? These were men and women chosen by God, not because of their status or family, but because of their faith and willingness to obey His call. Some performed miracles, others delivered messages of warning, and a few even foreshadowed the coming of Jesus Christ. Their stories are not just historical accounts. They are powerful lessons in faith, courage, and the unwavering love of God. Welcome to the Bible Stories with Gian channel. Today we're diving into the lives of the top prophets in the Bible. From fearless warriors to reluctant messengers, these individuals shaped history and continue to inspire us today. The role of prophets. Unlike priests or kings who inherited their positions, prophets were personally chosen by God. They came from different backgrounds. Some were leaders, others were shepherds, and a few were even seen as outcasts. Their mission? To reveal God's will, guide His people, and often warn them of consequences if they strayed. Prophets spoke God's truth, sometimes through powerful messages and other times through dramatic symbolic acts. They reminded people of God's justice, but also His mercy. Most importantly, they prepared the way for the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Now let's meet 10 of the most significant prophets in the Bible. 10th, Miriam, the first female prophet. Our journey begins with Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron. She was not just a loving sister, but a courageous leader. When Pharaoh ordered all Hebrew baby boys to be killed, it was Miriam who watched over her brother Moses, ensuring he was safely placed in a basket and found by Pharaoh's daughter. Years later, after the Israelites escaped from Egypt, Miriam led the women in song and dance, praising God for parting the Red Sea, Exodus 15:20-21. But like many leaders, she also had moments of weakness. When she challenged Moses' authority, she was struck with leprosy, but later healed. Her story reminds us that even great leaders must remain humble and faithful to God's plan. 9. Deborah, the warrior prophetess. Next, we meet Deborah, a woman of remarkable strength and wisdom. She wasn't just a prophet, she was also a judge and a military leader. In a time when Israel was oppressed by the Canaanites, Deborah courageously led the Israelites to victory. When the commander Barak hesitated to go into battle without her, Deborah boldly declared that God would deliver their enemy into the hands of a woman. And indeed, it was another woman, Jael, who defeated the enemy general Sisera, Judges 4-5. Deborah's story teaches us that faith and courage, not gender or status, determine true leadership. 8. Elijah, the prophet of fire. Few prophets had a more dramatic ministry than Elijah. He performed miracles, confronted kings, and even called down fire from heaven to prove that the God of Israel was the one true God. Elijah's most famous moment came on Mount Carmel, where he challenged the prophets of Baal to a contest. While the false prophets prayed without success, Elijah called upon God, and fire fell from heaven, consuming the offering. 1 Kings 18:38. Despite his incredible faith, Elijah also experienced deep despair. At one point, he fled into the wilderness, feeling completely alone. But God met him there, not in a storm or fire, but in a gentle whisper. Elijah's life reminds us that God's power is real, but He also speaks to us in quiet moments of comfort. 7. Isaiah, the prophet of the Messiah. Isaiah is one of the most quoted prophets in the Bible. He lived during a time of great turmoil in Israel, but brought a message of both warning and hope. More than any other prophet, Isaiah spoke about the coming Messiah, describing Jesus' birth, ministry, and suffering hundreds of years before it happened. Isaiah 53. In a vision, Isaiah saw God seated on His throne, and when he realized his own unworthiness, an angel purified his lips with a burning coal. This marked the beginning of his prophetic ministry, Isaiah 6. His story reminds us that when God calls, He also purifies and equips us for His mission. 6. Jeremiah, the weeping prophet. Unlike other prophets who performed miracles, Jeremiah was given the difficult task of warning Israel about their coming destruction. Because of his message, he was imprisoned, beaten, and rejected by his own people. Yet Jeremiah remained faithful, even through tears. He is often called the weeping prophet because he mourned for his nation's sins. But amid judgment, he also delivered one of the Bible's most beautiful promises, that God would make a new covenant with his people, writing his law on their hearts. Jeremiah 31:31-34. His story teaches us that even in the darkest times, God's love and redemption are always near. 5. Daniel, the prophet of dreams. Daniel was taken captive to Babylon as a young man, but remained faithful to God despite being surrounded by a pagan culture. He interpreted dreams for kings, survived a den of lions, and received visions of the end times. When King Darius was tricked into outlawing prayer, Daniel refused to stop praying to God. As a result, he was thrown into the lion's den. But God shut the mouths of the lions, and Daniel emerged unharmed. Daniel 6. His life shows us that unwavering faith in God can lead to miraculous protection and blessings. 4. Hosea, the prophet of love. Hosea's life became a living metaphor for God's love. God told him to marry Gomer, a woman who was unfaithful to him. Even after she betrayed him, Hosea took her back, illustrating God's unconditional love for his people. Hosea 1-3. This powerful story teaches us that God never gives up on us, no matter how far we stray. His love is relentless and always seeks reconciliation. 3. Jonah, the reluctant prophet. Jonah was called to preach to Nineveh, a city full of wickedness, but instead of obeying, he ran in the opposite direction. After being swallowed by a great fish for 3 days, Jonah finally repented and completed his mission. Jonah 1-3. However, Jonah struggled with God's mercy. He was angry when Nineveh repented and God spared them. His story challenges us to embrace God's grace, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. 2. Micah, the voice of justice. Micah spoke against corruption, greed, and oppression. He delivered one of the most famous prophecies about Jesus' birth, declaring that the Messiah would come from Bethlehem. Micah 5:2. His most well-known verse asks a simple yet powerful question: what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:8. His message remains relevant today. 1. Zechariah, the prophet of hope. Our final prophet Zechariah lived after Israel's exile and encouraged the people to rebuild the temple. His visions pointed to a future king, Jesus Christ, who would come humbly, riding on a donkey. Zechariah 9:9. Zechariah's prophecies show that no matter how broken things seem, God's plan is unfolding, leading to a glorious future. The prophets were more than just messengers. They were examples of faith, courage, and obedience. Their stories continue to teach us about God's justice, mercy, and unshakable promises. Which prophet's story inspired you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful Bible stories. See you in the next video. Take care. God bless you all.